Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jonny. I want to share with you something today that might be useful for you. It was very useful for me. And it has to do with sticking to a diet or sticking to a diet plan. And you know, as much as I have preached all my career about lowering sugar and lowering starch, those are the things in the diet that make us sick, fat, tired, and depressed. Those are the things we have to get out. I haven't always stuck to it myself. And, you know, I feel like diets are something like a Pandora radio station. If you don't attend to it, it drifts off. You know what I mean? Like you could start with, I want rap. But if you're not hitting the like or dislike buttons as it goes on, it can drift until all of a sudden you're listening to Tony Orlando and Dawn. You know, it just gets very far away from the original intent. And I will be very honest with you, I have slipped and slid away from a stricter low-carb diet. And it has been made very clear to me recently that I need to change that and get back on track. So I started to think about how I could recommit to this. And it got me thinking about the many people who have asked me, how do you start this? Because it's kind of the same question. How do you recommit to it? What are you going to do? What if you're starting low carb for the first time? And my approach to recommitting to this is kind of like what I'm going to suggest to you, which is forget about all the diets, forget about all the plans, and come up with kind of a shopping list of stuff to keep in the house. And that's what I'm going to share with you today, because this is what I did. I mean, if I wanted to start from scratch and just construct my kitchen and my pantry and my refrigerator in such a way that there was always something to eat, I could always put something together and I could stick within a low carb or kind of a high fat Mediterranean low carb kind of a basic eating plan. And some of what I'm going to suggest to you today may mean a change in your relationship to meals. Like breakfast may not look like breakfast and lunch may not look like lunch. You got to forget about things like sandwiches. You got to forget about things like convenience foods and chips and wings. And you got to start thinking in terms of what can I combine in a way that really is nurturing and healthy, even looking at food as medicine. You know, how can I take the best medicine into my body for the greatest health rewards? And so I came up with a list of 13 foods, includes beverages. And if you keep these in the house the way I am, you will find that you can make amazing meals out of them. And I got this idea kind of when we travel on vacation. Michelle and I always go to this same place, and it's kind of small and has a lot of people selling fruits and vegetables on the roads. And what we do, and the restaurants are very expensive, so we don't go out to eat that often. And what we wind up doing is kind of a version of what I'm going to tell you to do in your supermarket, which is we buy a lot of the local produce, buy a ton of nuts and seeds and fruits and vegetables and yogurt and cheese and all this stuff, and we combine it in different ways. We make Mediterranean picnics out of it. It's really interesting way to nurture yourself, and you could try this even for a week and see how it goes. So here's my 13 list. Now, here's my 13 foods list for the pantry. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail about why each of these foods is on the list. All of these are in my book, The 150 Healthiest Foods on Earth, which is now in its second 10th year anniversary edition. And it's available. And if you're interested in like all the reasons why these particular foods are on the list, please check that book out, and you'll be reading for a long time about what each of these foods does. But the basic idea is these are all anti-inflammatory foods. They are not high in sugar or starch. In fact, there's not a starch on the menu, actually, when you think about it. And they're all foods that can support that kind of healthy low-carb diet. I don't know that every one of them will support a ketogenic diet. Some of them might knock you out of ketosis. I'm not suggesting this for everybody, for every purpose that you could possibly use a diet for, but I think as a starting point for people who want to say, like, how can I get to kind of a more low-carb living kind of a way to do it? This is an easy way to go. Stock up on these foods. Okay, here's my list. Number one is nuts. Every kind of nut in the world. Whatever nut you're thinking about, it belongs on the list. I have cashews, macadamia nuts, peanuts, walnuts, everything. And I have them in jars in my nut cabinet, and those are my go-to snacks all the time. Number two, olives. You go to the olive bar at like a good grocery store where they're out there fermenting in the air. I mean, the real olives, not the kind that come in a little jar with the green food coloring and all that stuff, but like actual fermented olives. Just make yourself a big assortment of those, take them home and nosh on them all the time, or you're going to use them maybe in the kind of plates that I suggested putting together, where maybe there's a little olives and some nuts and some cheese. But olives, mainstay. Number 3, speaking of cheese, cheese. And I'm talking full fat dairy cheese. Okay, I'm not talking low fat anything or vegan cheese. I'm talking real cheese, preferably from raw milk. There's actually quite a lot of evidence now that full fat dairy is protective in many ways against cardiovascular disease and against diabetes. So there's a lot of reasons to eat full fat dairy. Number 4 is a category. All fruits and vegetables. Any one you can name, any of them, with the exception of like corn and potatoes and the starchy ones. Any green vegetable, any red vegetable, any yellow or white vegetable like cauliflower, just any of them. And you can eat them in any form you like. One of my favorites, when you're going to cook something separately, like broccoli or spinach, which isn't on everybody's favorite list, you cook that up so it's crispy. You cover it with butter. You let the butter just melt all over it, and you season it with Himalayan salt, and you go to town and you eat it. So all of the vegetables that you can think of, whether you eat them separately, and you cook them separately, or whether you even juice them the way I do. Doesn't matter, all fruits and vegetables are on this must-have list. Number 5 is full-fat yogurt. For many of the same reasons I mentioned full-fat cheese. Full-fat dairy has some protective effects. Yogurt is one of the least inflammatory foods in the world, and it's very, very good for just about everything that you can think of. And the fermented part of it means that there are probiotics in that yogurt, and that is incredibly important for your gut. So real full-fat yogurt. I am not talking about the stuff with the fruit on the bottom or the yolk plate or whatever it is. I mean the real deal food. Number 6 is berries. Now, I mentioned all fruits and vegetables, but I'm giving berries a special place because they are special. They are low in carbs, high in fiber, and so rich with nutrients that are anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. I could go on and on and on, but berries have to be there. Top of the list. Cherries. Wonderful food, especially tart cherries. They have all kinds of compounds like anthocyanins, which are actually helpful to reduce pain. That's why dark cherries are such a great food for gout. And it's a long-known folk wisdom that cherries are great for gout. And there's a reason for that. The anthocyanins in cherries do relieve inflammation and pain. So it's a very, very healthy food. Healthy for the heart, healthy for the brain, healthy for everything. Number 8 is avocados. And I think if you've heard me talk ever, you know how I feel about avocados. I wrote a book with Dr. Stephen Masley called Smart Fat. We put an avocado on the cover. It was our cover boy for the book Smart Fats, because avocados really are the poster child for smart fats. They're just good on every level. And here's a little known fact about avocados that most of you might not know, which is that they are actually high in fiber. So those are my 8 foods. Now we've got 2 protein sources, because all of that stuff was not really for protein, but for protein, 2 things and only: grass-fed beef and wild salmon. And again, if you want to know all the reasons for this, there's a ton of stuff on the internet, a ton of stuff I've written, columns, articles, that book, The 150 Healthiest Foods on Earth, and I tell you why it's got to be wild salmon and why it's got to be grass-fed beef. There is no substitute. Those 2 things, you got to go for the gold. Then the juices and the beverages. There's 3 of them. Pomegranate juice, and I'm not talking the cocktail with all the sugar. I'm talking the actual kind of bitterish pomegranate juice. You don't have to drink a ton of it because there is sugar in it. So I would go with like a 4-ounce portion a day. But pomegranate juice is just loaded with things that really help your heart and help your blood sugar and just help a million different systems in the body. In fact, there's some Israeli research done on pomegranate juice and rats, and I'll just tell you what their conclusion was. They said, this is kind of like a natural Viagra. So draw your own conclusions. Tart cherry juice. I mentioned tart cherries before, dark cherries, tart cherries, because they are so loaded with these wonderful compounds, anthocyanins, which are so anti-inflammatory and so high in antioxidants. So tart cherry juice, again, you want small portions. I use a concentrate and I put it into the water, and I've talked about this before. I keep water that is infused with lemon and ginger. Now I put a little bit of tart cherry juice concentrate in it, and that makes it even better. And finally, the last beverage on the list of 13, green tea. The more, the better. List of things it does is endless. It has catechins, which are anti-cancer. It has antioxidants. It has incredible anti-inflammatories. Green tea is loaded with stuff. Find a way to drink it. Include it in your diet. Now, what I'm saying here is not a diet. It's kind of a how do you stock your pantry so I always have something that I can eat that's filling and nurturing and is actually going to contribute to my health with every bite. That's my list. I think it's a great starting point. I hope you do too. Let me know what you think. If you like the channel, please hit a like, subscribe, and send those questions in. We'll keep answering them. This is Dr. Jonny, and I will see you on the next video.